overall, if coaches are pushing diets and really like nitpicking the way someone's body looks and like body shaming people, like I just don't think that there's any setting that a coach needs to do any of those things. Like I really don't. I think that there are ways to really measure performance that have nothing to do with the way that our bodies look.
Welcome to the Winning Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Schwartzman. I'm a family man, a coach, a wannabe athlete. After earning 3 master's degrees and countless certifications, I've decided that podcasting is how I'm going to continue my education in all things wellness, longevity, and performance. Join me to learn along. If you don't mind, could you start by kind of just telling us, you have a unique role, but can you tell us your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So, I was an athlete my whole life. I played since I was little, soccer and basketball, and I did softball. And then as I got into high school, really loved soccer and wanted to go to college for that, and decided to do Division 3. So, always very interested in athletics. And when I was in college, I was Division 3. They didn't have strength and conditioning coaches. Um, but I really remember feeling like, wow, this is something that could have helped me back in high school. Kind of going back to high school thinking I played these sports and it was very much like this is what you do. You go to practice, you go to the game, and then you're on your merry way. And then maybe you'll go to college and play. I wasn't like slated to play at a big university or anything. But when I was a junior in high school, I had the opportunity to do a self-supported bike ride across the country, starting in California and ending up back in New Jersey. And
Yeah.
because I was such a rule follower and like I was like, that doesn't fit into a box. I don't understand. Um, my dad and my stepmom said yes, and my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, said yes. It was her third grade teacher who had he did one with a group of students probably like 6 years before, and then he was doing another one. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I won't be able to do my soccer training for the summer. And I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna put it out there and try something new. I hated wearing a helmet as a kid, so I was like, you are not gonna get me on a bike for 50 days with a helmet. Like, I'm gonna get made fun of, like all of those things. I committed to it and I finished it. And that was one of the moments in my life where I never really talked about that in the context of my job because I work with eating disorders, and 50 days on a bike when you're, 17 years old sounds like a lot, but nourished and hydrated and rested and all of that throughout. But I look back and I'm like, that was what got me into sports psych. Like I love sports psychology for the sole reason that I was just a mediocre athlete who committed to something that seemed impossible, and I trained and I persevered with my family and listened to nothing but MOTOWN music or nothing while riding. It was in 2001. So like pre-cell phone, had to use the big maps, was self-supported with like the pannier bags on, and it changed my whole view of what people can do with their bodies and their minds. So I think that's kind of how I initially got into the sports psychology piece, but at the time, I didn't think that was a field. Like it really wasn't. Um, so then when I went to college, I obviously went to play soccer and got injured, so was out for the first season, redshirted, and was studying psychology. And during the time from when I got back from the bike trip and then I had a close friend of mine who was struggling with an eating disorder. Never knew what an eating disorder was, like never knew what the signs were, but saw that all of a sudden my friend that was in all the sports with me growing up now was a completely different person, really struggling, and she was alone. And so that kind of piqued my interest in trying to learn everything I could about eating disorders and how athletics really played a role. Um, so she's doing great now. This is years and years and years ago. Um, but that really set me on a journey of, okay, I'm studying psychology. I love athletics. It sucks when you get injured. And if someone has some sort of like mental health crisis or an eating disorder and it relates to athletics, I want to know what that is. Like, what are the gaps? What are the things that hold this together? So that's kind of what brought me into this field. I thought I wanted to be a therapist. Then I thought maybe I would be a dietitian, and then, took a lot of time off between my undergrad and graduate degree in sports psychology. And I worked for 8 years at a residential eating disorder facility. And in that time, I really noticed, okay, there's a gap in treatment. There's a gap in helping athletes and helping people as they're reintegrating movement into their lives after they had to step out to really focus on their mental health and their physical health. And that's when I went the sports psychology route to inform my coaching. So I was a personal trainer throughout that time and got to help people move their bodies and got to work with therapists, dietitians, doctors. And it was really enlightening to me just because I was like, okay, like there's a connection here. I don't know what it is yet, but there's a connection. So um when I went the sport psych route, I then met amazing people like yourself, and other sports psychologists and dietitians in the sport world, and they kind of led me to St. Louis. So I really wanted to work with athletes. The program that I was working with did not treat athletes per se. And then they opened one in St. Louis, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this might be the job that I've always been wanting. Like it's all those things that like were piquing my interest back in undergrad. And now all of a sudden there's this program in the Midwest where I never thought I would live. And they're integrating mental health and sport and exercise. So I moved out there and worked at the Victory program for 7.5 years, and my office was the gym. So I then got my NSCA CSCS. So I was a personal trainer, sports psych background, and realized, okay, I did not go to school for exercise science. I need to teach myself all of this, and I need to figure out a way to merge my sports psych knowledge and how can I work with athletes with the gold standard of the CSCS. So I did a lot of studying and ended up, passing the test. And then as I was going through that process, I was like, wow, strength and conditioning is really cool. And there's so many different pieces of the strength and conditioning puzzle that I felt like I had been missing all of those years because I went to a Division III. There wasn't strength and conditioning. We in high school, all the guys were able to do strength training, and like the girls had like 30 minutes at, the way end of the day, and no one to write programming. So, I was interested in all of it. So would have to write programs for myself. But then I think back and I'm like, wow, can you imagine the support that could have been there when I was in high school and then in college from a strength and conditioning standpoint. So, um, this is my very long-winded way of saying like I kind of found my niche, but it was still not a thing when I moved to St. Louis, because then I was facing, okay, well, now I'm a fitness professional, probably one of the only ones working in an eating disorder treatment setting. And most of my colleagues either one or take the abstinence approach, or two are like, wait, why are you a fitness professional working with eating disorders? So I really, for most of my career, had to really dig into those pieces that really were like nagging at me for years. Like, these pieces somehow relate. And now they relate in the context of eating disorder treatment. And there has to be something there. Fast forward, I had an incredible experience working there, working with athletes at every level possible, being able to help them reintegrate sport into their treatment and be able to talk to athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic departments on really being able to create policy and have a stepwise plan of like, okay, someone gets pulled from their sport, then they go to treatment. They have these really lofty, amazing athletic goals, and they haven't done anything for X number of months or more. And I was like, there's that bridge again. Like, I want to help bridge that gap and connect with those professionals that they will be discharging our care to, and really help them understand the whole athlete, what they were going through, and how to safely, intentionally get back into the sport that they, really love. So that's kind of where I placed myself in the field now. I I solely work with people who are struggling with eating disorders or RED, so relative energy deficiency in sport. Um, and now I'm working at an outpatient level and more on the advocacy end. So since we met and since I've moved here over to Rhode Island, I've gotten more involved with Body Positive Fitness Alliance, and they're a nonprofit that really stands with 8 pillars of being able to create, accessible, approachable spaces that really focus on like full health and body positivity and staying within your scope of practice. And I've just really enjoyed kind of taking the leap over to more of the advocacy and education, like train the trainers approach in my career. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm working with outpatients. I'm working within the context of a partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient. And I work with athletes who are returning to high levels, to people who've never worked out a day in their life, but like haven't felt comfortable in traditional fitness spaces, and trying to help get them into it in a way that feels like, okay, like this can be sustainable and this could be something that I can do for the rest of my life. And I feel welcome here. I feel empowered here. So it's kind of where I've I'm not ending my career, but that's kind of where I've like created my new start line per se, from the time that I've met you.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a lot of rambling, Mitch.
That's some great rambling. I will circle back to the important work that you're doing, and we'll spend more time diving into the career and the individuals that you're working with. But one thing, we're both parents. My kids are 6 and 7 right now. And one thing that I just fixate on early experiences in life. I find myself I always want to hear more about those things.
Yeah.
And when you talk about that 50-mile bike ride, I just wonder at that age, that's just got to change you a little bit.
Yes.
That's quite the feat. And I just, in my mind, I just wonder, if you don't do that, do you then not have the grit to go basically carve out a niche in this field and to just find things to do. I just wonder how impactful something like that would be on a young person. And
Yeah,
that's a pretty neat story.
thanks.
And I think about, you have that, so you're young, you have that, and then like a year later, you gain an injury playing soccer. Um, was that like a season-ending injury, or?
So it was interesting because I had my best year of soccer the year following. So, and it was 3,500 miles, 50 days on the bike trip. So, it was like literally my whole summer. And I came back. I was obviously very well conditioned and like motivated. But when I finished my senior year of high school in soccer, then I just wanted a break. Like I just wanted a break. And going into college, I didn't know what college expected of me for soccer. So I actually injured myself during preseason in college. And I knew that it started out as a knee sprain, and then like the tendonitis was so bad I couldn't walk down the hill to get to the soccer field. I was on crutches and I was like in a new school, and they gave me the option to redshirt, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Um, so I ended up redshirting and I worked closely with the team and I worked for the athletic department. So it wasn't career ending, but coincidentally, I had never played lacrosse before in my life, but because it was Division 3, they look for athletes from different sports, and I
Yeah.
happened to be better come lacrosse season, and I happened to have a lacrosse stick from the one time that I like wanted to play on the beach with my cousin in the summer. And some of the people who were on the lacrosse team also were on the soccer team, and they were like, "Hey coach, Amanda has a stick in her closet."
Yeah.
So I ended up doing all of the scoring, the books for lacrosse. And in the second game, they stole that stick out of my closet. And my coach was like, "Hey, Amanda, I think I want you to play." I was like, "I'm not playing lacrosse. I don't even know the rules." He's like, "You've played soccer, you've played basketball, like you can see the field. You were just injured for this amount of time. It's going to help you with soccer for next year." So I was like, "Do you really think that I can do this?" He's like, "Yeah. If you're doing something wrong, I'll let you know, but like go do defense," because I was always a defender. Didn't know the rules, went into the game. Also, they gave me a uniform that was like down past my knees because it was like the last one. And I played in that first game and I absolutely loved it. And I stopped playing soccer in college and I
Yeah.
started playing lacrosse. And then it became a really fun journey. We probably were the worst team in the conference, and it was the best time I had had in a really long time in a sport. I got close with my coach. He taught me like everything I needed to know about lacrosse, and I just picked it up really quickly. So it was interesting because I didn't play the sport that I went to college for, and then ended up being captain the next year, was like doing things I never thought I could. And then I only played 2 years of lacrosse in college just because then some other stuff had happened and I wanted to focus on getting an internship and all of the other adult things that I had,
Yeah.
my mindset. My coach ended up going to Villanova and I was like, "You know what? This was a good run." Like he got his
Yeah.
dream job. I did this cool thing for 2 years and then kind of decided to retire from athletics in that regard. But yeah, it was definitely a ride because I was like, "Oh, I came here for soccer and now I'm playing lacrosse," and it was really fun.
I love that. That's a great story you got there. That's a good plot twist.
It was a
Um,
plot twist for sure.
I also I relate, and I think a lot of people can too, with how you mentioned having that friend who is going through the disordered eating issues and body image issues. If you're a caregiver and you see a problem earlier in life, I see so many people that they want to, if a time machine were ever to appear, they collect the skills to go solve that problem from years ago.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so having people you care about suffer, it really steers the ship sometimes
It
with
does.
what you're going to get educated in and think people you want to help and things like that. So um, I think that's interesting. I wonder if you how often you think about that. If that's a without maybe without the bike ride and the lacrosse stick in your closet and that one friend having an issue, your whole life is different. But those are just that's me fixating on those early experiences again.
Yeah.
Um, so shifting back to more of your area of expertise,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm working in the college setting right now. I've worked in um, I've worked in your local like Bally Total Fitness. A lot of
Yep.
people listening. A lot of my college students right now have never even heard of that because it's gone now. But it's been gone basically since like 2013, I think. Um, but the biggest gym in the 90s, the biggest gym in the world in the 90s, I believe,
Yep.
and now non-existent. But I've seen different populations and things like that. But from your perspective, what are some big warning signs that people are struggling? Maybe we could talk about maybe they to the point that they need a little conversation or they need some serious help. What are we going to see maybe in the weight room, maybe regarding nutrition, and maybe regarding stress levels and how those might be expressed?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny that you got your career started at Bally's because I started mine at Gold's Gym.
Oh, you know what? I lived at the time I lived in Maryland Heights, and there was within about a mile and a half, there was a Bally Total Fitness and a Gold Gym across the street,
No
and then
way.
up the hill was a YMCA. And I got my ACE personal training certificate, and I said I'm gonna walk to each facility and meet everybody and go from there. And I walked over to Bally Total Fitness, and the guy there made such a good impression on me. I never went to the other gyms.
That's awesome.
And I don't regret it. Not the best compare and contrast, but I don't regret sticking with that guy, Ira Baldwin. But it's just Bally's was a huge part of my life for so long.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. I
yeah,
love that you like had this plan that you were gonna walk to each one and make a decision. And I similarly walked into Gold's Gym and was just like, I don't think you guys are like they don't have anything posted, but are you hiring? And they're like, well, we're not hiring any personal trainers right now, but can you make smoothies? I was like, I love making smoothies. So I
yeah,
started making smoothies and then training. But it's fun when you kind of just get into those situations where you're like, I'm just gonna go do this thing, and then, you don't know what the outcome's gonna be, and the outcome was that you were gonna be at Valley Total Fitness and not even
yeah,
go to the other ones. That's cool.
yeah.
Um, to answer your question, so yeah, what would you look for in an athlete or someone who's struggling? I think in the gym specifically, um, I always like to lean on, and it's nice, and I don't know if you can kind of add this image, but the image of the IOC's reds, and there's that circle, and it's what are all of the performance decrements, or what are all of the things that are going to decrease for an athlete if they're training hard and not nourishing their body enough. So I always like to look at that, but basically, someone who knows how bodies move in a gym, the first few things that are going to pop up are, decreased training response, decreased recovering time, focus maybe is different than it usually is at baseline. kind of mood might be different than it is at baseline. Then you'll start seeing, decreased strength, endurance, power, speed. Um, and I think that those things could be related to so many different factors and so many different causes. But when it comes to someone who might be in a state of energy deficiency, those things are going to start popping up, and it's going to start happening in a way where the trainer or the coach or the person who's, working out with this other individual might just start noticing those things. And that's when I would say, hopefully if you know the person well, you're going to kind of be able to notice that something's going on personally before those things happen. But definitely in the gym, I always like to say, if you start seeing those things, just check in with the person. I mean, you don't know what's going on in their life. It could be not at all related to food or exercise. It could be something happened within their family, or, they're going through a hard time. But once you start seeing those things, I just encourage people not to ignore them. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if you experience this in the collegiate setting, but any athlete I ever worked with at a high level, especially like coming from a college setting, is, sitting down with them in the context of like residential treatment or, beyond that. They always said one thing: I just wish that someone said something to me sooner. Like they had to notice that I was always the first one, finishing, or I was always progressing in my lifts. I was always encouraging the other people in the gym with me, and then something changed. And I wish someone would have just came up to me and checked in with me as a person. Maybe, not coming up and being like, "Hey, I think you have an eating disorder." Like definitely wouldn't, encourage that, but just checking in with me as a person. How you doing? Are you doing okay? Um, and yeah, those are the things I think I would initially kind of look for in the gym setting. I think in team settings, or if you're an athlete and you're traveling and there's, more social isolation, or kind of skipping team meals, ending up kind of noticing more like depression or anxiety symptoms like around kind of those team social gatherings or meals. I think again, just checking into your teammate, your friend, your player. I think that's really key. Are those things that you've seen or witnessed in your settings when someone potentially is struggling, not even if it's with an eating disorder or relative energy deficiency, but like something's off and you start noticing those things?
So I think it's been an interesting 20 years. Uh, um, you were talking about being in high school and the boys kind of having a structured strength program, and they gave the girls 30 minutes at the end of the day,
Yeah.
kind of have fun doing whatever. When I went to high school, we had this awesome strength coach who treated everybody the same, high energy, cared about everybody. Everybody got really high quality
Wow.
attention and intention. And and your experience, and then I talk to women who are in their 70s, or and they talk about not being allowed to play sports in high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And so it has been an interesting progression over time. Part of that progression, and from the early 2000s, and then CrossFit comes around, and
Yeah.
everybody realizes, if they didn't know it already, it's cool. It's cool to be muscular, and like it's in.
Yeah.
Um, but with what I've seen some extreme cases. So in the commercial gym setting, you see people who have that they're over exercising.
Right.
I've seen things where they bring in towels and set them on the ground because they're going to be on the elliptical so long that they know there'll be a pool of,
Yeah.
like a literal pool of sweat underneath them.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen that. I have seen the athletes who just they start crying in the middle of a lift.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're drained. There's something going on. But with that, over time, I've also seen, okay, if I just talk about CrossFit being a very strong female, more commonplace,
Yeah.
more in vogue. I've also seen the stigma, mental health issues. I've seen that lower. Is that people just get it now? People go through hard
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and that has changed over the last 20 years. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I feel like I'm around a more aware population now. Um,
Definitely.
they, I feel like they're in the know. I feel like their mental health resources are more prevalent, more capable. Every the universities I've worked at, they have people in place. They communicate that this is important.
That's great.
So I'll see that stress express itself in different ways. If you're able to create a relationship with that individual ahead of time, it helps not only you read them, but it helps them get comfortable and just say, I'm struggling. So
Yeah.
um,
That's
I'm
awesome.
not, yeah. So I see that for sure, and
Yeah.
in different ways, shapes, and forms.
Yeah.
But
I think too, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers, people who are in gym settings, if they obviously if they're good at their job and they're passionate about it, they do create those relationships. And I think a lot of times that's when an athlete, like you're probably the point person that they're going to come to when they have an issue. And I think that's one thing I always try and encourage athletic people or fitness professionals to be like, hey, you might be the first person that someone discloses that something's really hard. And what is it that you do with that information? How do you support that athlete to get the support that they need? Do you have, a list of professionals that you would refer to for X, Y, and Z thing that comes up? So I think it's really interesting that you say that because I do actually know that athletes do tend to feel more comfortable. And like you talk about things when you're working out. Like you talk about things when you're with your teammates and um the person in the gym with them like really is in a position to, for better or worse, really help and influence this person. So I'm glad to hear that like relationship building really is happening in your settings because I do think that it makes it easier to then, if and when someone needs support, to get them the right help that they need.
yeah, we've I think creating like a pipeline. So
Yeah.
if you are sometimes you got strength coaches that are the same age or just barely older than the athletes that are in the weight room with them,
Yeah.
and some heavy duty stuff presents itself. You don't want to just put on like a counseling hat and start trying to solve people's problems. You just
Exactly.
say, "Oh, this is what my director told me that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I now alert this mental health counselor. I
Yeah.
alert their head coach, whatever the
Yeah.
organization is." But yeah, the having like it's like when their tornado hits, is you have an emergency action plan. So we do
Yeah.
the same. We've got the same thing for when athletes they come in, they're if they were disoriented or suicidal or homicidal, or as just the varying level of crisis that they're in. We,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
we have different action plans. Yeah,
That's awesome. A lot of places don't have that, so I'm glad to hear that, it's in place and like you said, like environmental crisis can happen and like you have a plan and it's important in the same regard. So I love that like everyone is somehow connected and like knows their role in how to support someone.
yeah, and we've got great athletic trainers on campus who are they do a they do a really good job of relationship building. Like I know it's important, but they execute it really well, and they're set up to do that along with their personalities and their efforts. So athletes are in pretty good hands over here right now. So
That's awesome.
yeah. What populations are you dealing with, and what are you emphasizing with their physical training?
Yeah. So the populations I work with are mostly people who have eating disorders, recovered from an eating disorder, or are injured or retiring from sport in some capacity. So when I go to work, my goals, if someone is kind of in a state of they had to leave their sport um, to work on their mental health and their physical health, my goal with them is one, to meet them where they are, to really understand the whole picture of what's going on. So communicating and collaborating with like therapists, dietitians, doctors, and seeing what it is that they're capable, like not capable, but what they're essentially like safe to do from a training perspective. And then I build their training plan based on that. And then I'm always in communication with their dietitian. Okay, if I add this, and this, or this training load, or if I change the duration or intensity, is this going to impact their um, nutritional input at all? And if so, like, what can we change? How can we be in lockstep together to help them remain in a state of energy balance to get to the athletic goals that they want? So there's a lot of collaboration there. And then there's a lot of collaboration with the doctor too. If they, had an injury, a lot of my clients struggle with bone health injuries or like diagnosis of osteoporosis at a young age, really being able to tailor what they can do to get them back to their sport, but in a way that like is kind of coming from the injury rehabilitation of like the metabolic injury, but also injury prevention from some of these other factors that athletes who have struggled with REDS in some capacity might also be dealing with. So I don't know if that answers your question, but in the gym, it's really just like figuring out what their goals are, making sure that they're doing it in a safe and intentional way, setting up training plans that are sustainable and can help them be successful. And then also, like, I'm always, regardless of what level the athlete's at, is looking at longevity. I think that that's probably something, and maybe as I get older, like I really look at longevity, but I've worked with some athletes who've left sport, came to treatment, did all the things, went back to sport, retired from sport, and now are like moving on to other areas of life. And the word longevity comes up every single time, no matter what athlete I'm working with. So I really try and see things out of the lens of like, okay, how can this be sustainable and how can I build a training plan in this current moment to help them get to their short-term goals, but then also support their long-term goals. So that's really my approach when I meet with an athlete, depending on kind of where they're at and what their individual endeavors are.
So when you talk about, I guess, volume of work that you're putting them through, is there an emphasis on calories? Like, are you aware of how much they're supposed to be eating and how far, maybe if they're behind or if they're two ahead? Um, and then are you doing any kind of calculating for, we did this many sets and reps, this weight, we used that much energy? Is there any sort of calculation there? And also, is there any metrics for maybe like their BMR, or do they wear any devices to showcase?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm gonna guess that every once in a while some of them are trying to sneak in exercising when they're.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So, really good questions. I think that to answer the first question is I'm privileged to, and I set my work up where I'm always in connection with the dietitian. So when I'm getting the full picture of what the athlete is doing in treatment, I don't have to calculate anything. I will kind of take what's already been calculated, and the dietitian will say, hey, right now, they are able to do, X number of days at X intensity. I don't know what that looks like, Amanda. Can you figure that out? And then I create it based on what the dietitian kind of sets for me. With that, I will, if I think something is really important for maybe their bone health or their overall, like if I know that they're here and their goal is to get to preseason of sport here, the time is realistic and they're doing all the right things that they need to be doing for their eating disorder treatment or their um working through getting into that state of energy balance, I will propose plans backwards to the dietitian and say, hey, this is kind of where I want them to go. I know that you know their energy needs. Can you help me now build and bridge the gap for them? And so it kind of goes both ways, but I would say depending on the level of care. So when I was in working in residential treatment, it was always the dietitian and the doctor that would say, this is what they're allowed to do from like a time and duration and intensity standpoint. They might have certain intensity limitations based on cardiovascular concerns, or they might have some level of like orthostatic vital signs, so I have to take those things into account. They might have an injury or might be dealing with some bone health concerns. So I take all of those things from the doctor and the dietitian, build the training plan from there. As clients step down to a lower level of care, or the clients that I'm working with now who are in outpatient or haven't needed to go to a higher level of care because they kind of caught the imbalance early, I a lot of times will build out a 2, 4-ish week plan and then present it to their eating disorder treatment team and say, this is where I think they can go. This is where they want to go. Can you help me fill in the gaps with meal plan, with therapeutic supports, and what do we need to keep measuring, whether it's lab work or, medical vital signs, things like that. What do you need me to look for when I'm working with them in the gym or as I'm like writing out an exercise prescription? What sort of things should I be talking with the client about, even with like rate of perceived exertion? Like I want to set them up to be able to meet your goals and their athletic goals, and I kind of act as the bridge in between. So I don't do any calculating of calories or anything, but I know a general sense of like the range that they need to be in. And I always talk with athletes like what should I look for if all of a sudden you're not nourished, you're not hydrated. Like it's probably all things most coaches can see, but like I want to know individually, like what do I need to know? What is a struggle for you? What's a backslide? What are all of these things that people haven't caught in the past, and how can I like be really present with you and kindly and transparently challenge you to like support you and keep going in your goals. So that kind of answers the first question. Devices, it's so individualized. I mean, some people, again, depending on level of care and how much that device defines their self-worth, it can go either way. I've worked with athletes who take their device off and they never use it again. And then they end up at school and they're being timed and they're being measured and all of these things are happening. And it's really hard because we like, took it away. So that can go one way. I've had people take the device, don't use it for a while, really focus on body cues, internal body cues, rate of perceived exertion, still trying to hit certain goals that the device would likely tell, but like maybe they don't see it. Um, Maybe I have them wear it and like cover it over, or I just see the data, kind of help adjust things there. And then there are times when people really are able to use it in a way that's like just super informative and non-judgmental, and they're like, okay, these are the things I know I need to stay within this heart rate range, or I need to make sure I don't exceed this number of steps a day, or whatever it may be. And it's been such a helpful tool. So it really will depend on the client and how that athlete like utilizes that tool. Just like mirrors can be extremely helpful in the gym and they can be really hurtful for other people. It's more like, how are you using this tool? Is it effective? Are you able to be objective with it? Or is this another barrier to the success that you could have if we just took this device away? I don't know if that answers your question, but it totally depends. And I'm always, I think specifically for the athletes who have to then be judged or measured in a certain like time, pace, things like that later, I like to really sprinkle those exposures in with the help of a treatment team before they just get to a starting line. Just because the reality of the sport is just like the reality of a certain uniform is that they're going to be presented with it. So let's build as much resilience and confidence around these things before stepping back onto a starting line. Yeah.
All the personal trainers, all the coaches, all the parents, what are we doing, saying that's maybe sending people in the wrong direction?
Yeah. I've heard a lot of things to not say, which I will not share just because I feel like there can be really damaging messaging no matter what setting you're in. And if you're working with an individual who is their goal is to damage your soul, then that's hard. But I think I always like to take the approach, especially talking with coaches, it's like we don't know what we don't know. And there are certain things that maybe in our schooling or in our settings, it's really normalized to do. And then maybe someone who's in a situation where they're vulnerable to overtraining or they're vulnerable to an eating disorder, they hear those things and it can activate them in some way. I think kind of overall, if coaches are pushing diets and really like nitpicking the way someone's body looks and like body shaming people, like I just don't think that there's any setting that a coach needs to do any of those things. Like I really don't. I think that there are ways to really measure performance that have nothing to do with the way that our bodies look. Um, but I think, again, not knowing what we don't know, a lot of coaches think that they have to like measure and weigh and do all these things and then like use that as a motivator. And my thing is like just encourage coaches to not use fear and shame as a motivator and like figure out, like get creative. What are all the other ways that you can help an athlete successfully get to their goal without making them feel shitty about themselves? So I really think it's just that. It's like not telling someone what they're doing is right or wrong in the way that they're living their life, they're moving their body, the way that they're eating or not eating. Like, I just think not pushing diets and not pushing like body shaming behaviors are really the only things I would say, like for a coach to kind of steer away from. I think when coaches post people's weights, that can be really activating for someone who's vulnerable. I almost think too, and I know it's more commonplace in team settings, but like posting what everyone's like numbers are with like their lifts and stuff like that. Again, on the other end, I help my clients be able to see those numbers and not let them wholly define them. But sometimes it's hard when they're already like in a vulnerable place with comparison. But again, I would just say like the diets and the body shaming are just totally no's. Trying to think what else. I also think coaches that are not working within their scope of practice is important to bring up. I think I've seen a lot of harm done when again a coach tries to be a therapist or tries to be a dietitian and is writing out all these meal plans and really trying to be their everything when like we have a really cool job and we have a lot of knowledge, and like if we could just channel and focus and stay within our scope of practice, we could really help the individual and then not feel so bad when we have to reach out to other professionals and like create that network and that scaffolding for the athlete where it's not just coming from us. So I think damage can be done when people work outside of their scope of practice.
Yeah, so we'll run it. We do, uh, if we kind of blend what we were just talking about with
Yeah.
earlier, like
Yeah.
cautionary tales and telltale signs of overstress.
Yeah.
One of the bigger triggers, and it's very it's common sense to sit here and say it, but if you're a coach who's just looking for that competitive edge, okay, we're already doing all this other stuff. Well, what if my athletes all had six packs and if they were this, that, and the other? The coaches who start pushing like the body scans or the weight check-ins. I like this. I don't know if you've heard of Coach Tony Holler. He's a Illinois high school track coach who's gained some popularity over the last couple of years here. He's got some good systems, but he has a little bit of, he says, record, rank, and publish. And so it is how many pull-ups can they do? How fast do they run?
Yeah.
Showcase everything.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we see that is high stress, you're doing it with a team, a couple of athletes on that team are going to be they're gonna it's going to cause struggle. It's going to cause
Yeah.
friction.
Yeah.
It's going to flip that switch in their brain that kind of makes them think the wrong thoughts and overbear on these things. And it
Yeah.
really it's really focusing as a strength coach, as a fan of athletics. Yes, a lot of successful athletes are extremely lean, but there's also successful athletes that have bellies on them, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean I think about male fighters. There's been some very successful boxers and UFC athletes who have guts on them, and they're out there for the
Yeah.
world to see. And some of the other guys, they look like they're like stud underwear models. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they look great, but there's these other guys that are performing their sports and they've got the big belly to go with it. So
Yeah.
a lot of the levels we work at is like this 20-year-old female, yeah, she probably could lose 20 pounds, but why don't we just talk about her conditioning scores and her strength levels instead? Because that's what's really mattered. I mean, there's no judges scoring how the teams look on a basketball court or whatever it is. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
And that's how most people feel they're being judged when they're, actually being judged based on their sport. And then it's like all these extra competitions that end up around it. And I think that data can be really helpful if you use it as data. It's like, hey, I have these goals. How do I get to where I want to be? And I don't think that, I don't think there's so many different aspects that go into sport performance. And a lot of times, coaches, trainers, anyone in the athletic world, like they put a lot of emphasis on weight when there's so many other things that would contribute to someone's sport performance. And
Yeah.
so what I really like to do is think of all of those other factors and see how I can support those to help the athlete and just leave the weight out of it. I really don't think that that's where we should be focusing. And I've seen people be really successful when that pressure is taken off of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's focusing on the right things makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's interested in athletics loves competition. And so I think there is definitely ways to set up environments that can be beneficial, helpful, like just good old competition versus like detrimental shaming competition. And I think sometimes when athletes get stuck in that like comparative mindset, it's like, okay, I know you're really competitive. I don't want that to change about you because let's not lose that edge. But how do we make this competition in whatever aspect it is, beneficial versus detrimental? And what are the things that are making it detrimental? And usually it's the things like people are focusing on X, Y, and Z when like I could do all of these things if they weren't making me feel pressure on X, Y, and Z. And so I think that's where I just encourage all coaches to you can have the data for yourself, but maybe don't just like showcase it everywhere and get creative on all those other factors that really can help your athlete get to the next level without focusing on, weight and body shape.
Yeah. The ability to like let athletes just be in a flow state and to not be overthinking things. It's a special way to get into it, and
Yeah.
taking them out of that, it really robs them of years of athletic practice.
Yeah.
Uh, in the book, gosh, I think it's The Rise of Superman is the name of the book,
Okay.
but it's basically how we all can elevate our human performance, and it's about flow states. Um, and in the book, the author, slipping my mind right now, but they talk about in tennis, there's ranking systems. And when athletes who rank a certain amount lower than higher ranked athletes, when those lower ranked athletes are winning, they have numbers and data and stories to showcase that those lower ranked athletes, when they're ahead and they're winning, and statistically they have a lead that should cause them to win. If they're too far down the food chain, they start getting excited and they start overthinking it, and it takes them out of that flow state.
Yes.
And then that champ with maybe a little bit more experience, fortitude, whatever, they overtake the lead because the other competitor is taken out of their flow
Wow.
state. And so, that's very vague. I need to go back and reread that so I can get
Yeah,
some of the
I want to read
terminology and
it.
details right. But
Yeah.
it's a great book. I honestly, I tell stories from that book all the time in some of the classes I teach and with the athletes I work with.
Yeah.
The fact that I can't recall the author's name right now is a shame.
It's all right. You'll get it and you're going
But
to put it in here and
yeah, big time. I will actually. But to have people focusing on the wrong things, it robs them of their superpowers.
yeah, totally, totally. Which reminds me of a book. Have you read any of Jerry Lynch's books?
I have not.
Okay, highly recommend. He wrote like 40 books and has coached and worked with like some of the best of the best. But he calls it the river.
How about Instagram says that it's relevant, important, valued, empowered, and respected.
There you go.
So years ago, they used to tell us that body image issues were kind of brought on by maybe seeing these unrealistic body types in magazines and things like that. Has that been exacerbated with social media and exposure to influencers and things like that?
I think it has. I mean, I think even just in the 20 years I've been in the field, more and more clients will come and kind of share their experience of like just being able to see so many images. But I do think I think back to when I was in high school and when I first started working with eating disorders and there were magazines. Like we all had magazines and we all looked at those same images there. So I don't want to blame social media. I don't think it's just social media. I think it's more the unrealistic expectations. My hope is that there are more people out there in the world who are showing reality and are speaking out about the other side of all of it. I don't even know how to say that. I think that there's an antidote essentially. So my hope is that if you get on the right algorithm on social media, you're kind of seeing those messages that are more life-giving.
Another maybe more contemporary issue. Are you all seeing do the Lat-Band surgeries or the GLP-1s, does that bring anybody to your doorstep? What's the relationship with some of the modern medicine, I guess?
Yes, just yes. Um, I also feel like with anything, there's nuance, and I work with clients who have successfully utilized those tools for other medical conditions, and it's not exacerbating their eating disorder. But I do think that those parts of modern medicine are definitely a factor that people have to do really hard work around, and hopefully they have the support and the resources to be able to do that work to make those tools not affecting them in a way that hopefully they have the resources and the tools to really be able to kind of process all that comes with those things. I think a lot of times people will get a surgery or use a medicine as a first option and might not have therapeutic or nutritional support around it and then develop some more of these tendencies that go with, eating disorders, disordered eatings, relative energy deficiency, all because again, they don't know what they don't know. So I think the use of any tool or the use of any even like training plan, I think it's really helpful to see the whole picture and be able to provide people with those extra resources and support as needed so that they can utilize it as meant to be utilized, not in a detrimental way. I don't know if that answers that, but yeah, I absolutely. I mean, and anything that is going to promise anything, but especially promise weight loss is going to somehow quickly show up in the settings that I'm working in. And helping
Yeah.
people with the nuance of that is kind of part of the art of working with an individual, based on their own goals and life and struggles and support systems and all of that. And that's why I feel lucky. I am in a position where I'm privileged to be able to work with a lot of professionals that do a lot of work, do a lot of research, do a lot of big thinking around how to support people in in within all the nuance. And in my piece of the pie, want to just remain, you know, a safe and supportive space for someone to move their body and achieve their goals in a non-shaming way. Like I just want to create that for people, whether it's in a gym, virtual support, like whatever it is. I really am just focused on those pieces and utilizing the supports around me to support the client with some of those other pieces, if that makes sense.
It does. It kind of sounds like whatever the next shortcut for weight loss is, they will find it and they
Yeah.
will appear at your doorstep sometime later.
Yeah. It's interesting. I run a low cost group for athletes who are dealing with returning to sport, integrating movement of whatever that looks like for them in their life. And w- it's you can cut some of this out, but like it's really interesting to hear over the years that when a new to the treatment field or new to trying to get through reds is like, hey, how do I get to my goal, and what's the timeline, what does this look like, what does this feel like? And every time there's someone who has been through the ringer, the long path, the hard way, the ups and downs, and they're like, the fastest way there is to eat adequately, nourish your body, hydrate your body, rest, and like do the work that's really hard that you're like looking at right now, because every shortcut somehow makes that path even longer. So it's just really interesting, like we can say that, but then to have people who've been through it and have tried the shortcuts and ends up being the longer path, it's really powerful to kind of be able to be in the presence of like someone saying that to someone else. So I like that.
Yeah, I heard recently it goes something like the success you're not achieving is in all the hard work that you're not performing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
What do you think? What do you think? Maybe your career. It sounds like you have an interesting group going. You could maybe tell us more about that. What do you think is going to happen with your career in the future? Maybe some directions you see yourself going, and then maybe the field of you could talk about the field of strength and conditioning, the field of caring for
Yeah.
individuals such as you are.
Where do I kind of see myself? Um, I feel like for myself in the kind of big picture, over my career, over the last 20 years, I feel like I've been kind of trying to carve my way into what I want to be doing, and I feel like I'm at the starting line now, which I know sounds silly because it's been 20 years, but my hope is for the second half of my career, I'm 40, I'll be 41 soon. I hope for the second half of my career, I don't have to explain all the back stuff and just be able to work with an athlete one-on-one, work with coaches, work with trainers, and for them to start at a baseline of like, let's just help this athlete in a way that is going to support them to get to their goals. Let's not add to the potential trauma that they're going to experience and need to get support with outside of athletic settings. Let's let's do no harm. Let's try to do no harm. We're not perfect people. We're going to make mistakes, but let's grow together. Like, let's grow together as a field to be able to win-win. Like, we want our athletes to perform well and they want to perform well, and let's do it in a way where we're not causing harm or placing blame or creating shame. That's my hope. I've seen it happen. I've seen it like go really well for people when they're in a position where again, all of that pressure is pushed aside and they're able to just do the thing that they're really passionate about doing, and they have fitness professionals and support systems behind them to kind of push them forward instead of pulling them back or pushing them down. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard somebody talk about working with college athletes, 4 years versus 40 years is, yeah, we might be able to push them and get one more set or rep out of them now, but what if we teach them how to enjoy this and we make them understand why they're doing these things? And then 40 years from now, they're kind of quoting us in their head and they're doing some of the things that we taught them to be taking care of themselves and to just be healthy for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And I'll often think about performance as a pyramid, and what's at the base of the pyramid. It's all this wellness stuff. You know, yeah, Michael Jordan had the flu game back in like '93 or whenever, but honestly, Billy and Sally, they just need to get some self-care in and to be taking
Yeah.
to be healthy, if they're going to go out and compete. And one of the things I noticed several years into my career was that athletes be having a great season, best season of their college career. I say, okay, why? What are you doing that's so different?
Yeah.
And a part of me is thinking, well, we did get your bench press up 15 pounds this semester, or
Yeah.
you are running, your 400-meter time dropped or your 40 time dropped or whatever it is. And then they say, I'm just healthy. I didn't get hurt this year and things are going well. And
Aw.
I'm just like, that's so boring. I I want to hear about this new exercise I'm experimenting with and how that kind of optimizes
Yeah.
things. But it's just one athlete over another. It's just I'm healthy and I'm able to keep practicing and keep getting better and better. And like,
Yeah.
and not super sexy, but
Yeah.
also really logical.
And effective. Like the fact that they were like, I'm doing well, so therefore I'm effective and reaching my goals and making you think it might be something you also did, which probably was part of it. Like they had a baseline of being able to grow and being able to perform and do things well. And I think that's where it's like, even if we do want to push someone to get that extra rep or to get that extra, whatever it may be in the gym, I feel like we can help people get there with like true support and kindness. And I always think back to with my little kids, and my husband and I always talk about, it's like, when we yell, is it really that effective? Like, are they really listening to us and like understanding and changing their behavior? Or are they completely ignoring us and not? Or are they just scared and they're like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I feel like I try and think of that when I'm with clients. I'm like, how can I create an environment that they can be the most effective that they can be just by being, approachable and kind and transparent and like being professional and knowing what I know and delivering that to them in a way that they don't feel crappy about themselves. Like how do I do that? Like what's that about? Because that's cool. Like that person was healthy and they were feeling good. And I bet that whoever they were around, like they were also kind of creating that environment for them to be able to thrive, to be able to do well, to be able to get into that flow state. So I always try and tell like newer trainers or coaches, like, you can make your environment what you want, but like make it effective. Just make it effective. And a lot of times being effective is more than just, I don't know. You can be stern and strict and hard and have your boundaries and have all of that stuff. Like do that, but do it effectively. When people are starting to feel terrible about themselves and not hitting certain markers because of that, we're not actually being effective coaches. We're just doing something else. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
it's not effective. I don't know why I keep saying the word effective, but cut 50 of them out.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason, the yelling at the kids just doesn't work.
It
And
doesn't work. I
uh,
want it to work sometimes.
um, and it's the spiral that you go on with that, where you just yell louder and louder and louder. They just tune you out. They get better. They get stronger and stronger ears. They tune you out more and more. Um,
Yeah.
and while I am still figuring out the parenting thing, it seems like yelling's ineffective. Not that I don't slip into it once in a while. Um, but the athletes have not been into the old school, yeah, getting yelled at for years. Basically, as I started out, I kind of saw it was it was it's gone the way of the dinosaur in
Yeah.
the professional setting. But what they do like is you educate them. Is they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And
Yeah.
you build that relationship, and then you say, hey, the reason we're doing a bunch of this exercise is because that's going to help stop some knee injuries,
Yes.
or we're going to try and stop knee injuries. We can't promise
Yes.
that. But this is why we're doing that, and this is why we're doing that. And then they say, oh, okay. And then they try a little bit harder at it because they don't want knee injuries and they want to
Right.
jump higher and whatever else
Right.
it is. So,
Right. Yeah, it's like gaining trust and then being able to grow together, being able to, I mean, sometimes coaching is having really hard, transparent conversations and then growing from that. And I don't think that having hard conversations is equal to just being mean. There's a
yeah.
way to do it in, I wouldn't want to say effective again, but I think it
Yeah.
can be effective.
Yeah, do you know it goes by another name, but there's the compliment sandwich,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
um, which you, okay, the session's over and you want to have that transparency and you tell them something nice, tell them what they need to work on in a relatively calm way, and then you tell them something nice again. So, um, it's positive, BF Skinner was
Yeah.
training training pigeons how to play like bowling and ping pong with ping pong balls by doing positive reinforcement over and over again. So
Yeah.
you would think that I could get my son to keep his shoes in the mudroom with that, but um, better luck tomorrow, I think.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but it's good. He's good. He's good. He teaches me how to do all this stuff.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, is there any que oh, is there any question I have not asked you that I should ask you, or should have?
I don't think so. Can I ask you a question?
Please.
What really piqued your interest in creating the podcast and like where do you see yourself in sharing these messages with the greater field?
I I don't have to think about that for too long, other than the fact that I will just try to package the answer.
Yeah.
I spent years telling my athletes how bad social media is for them. And then I felt like it, and then I realized I'm kind of a hypocrite because I don't like, I can talk all I want about how bad that is for you, but I don't use it. And I can tell you that till I'm blue in the face, but you're still gonna pick your phone up and hold it in between us. Like my my reminder every once in a while is not making any impact on this device that is the most addictive thing in the history of the human world. It's the most entertaining thing. So I realized after a couple of years of just trying to, hey, athletes, like that's not great for you. I just realized I'm going to kind of put my money where the mouth is because that's where their attention is. Instead of trying to get their attention offline onto me or onto the real world, I'm going to go dip my toes in the water. And
Love
I
that.
mean, if somebody hops on my Instagram, they'll see I'm not a prolific social media user, but I just put my money where my mouth is. And so I went through the maybe 2023, the year of 2023, I went through maybe my introduction to actually posting some things online and using
Yeah.
it as a if you go on my Instagram, you'll see that it's for
Yeah.
athletes. It's for athletes. Um, so the end of that year's coming up, and I kind of did it as a New Year's resolution. And I started thinking about my next New Year's resolution. I was thinking, I've got these mentors who are never going to do anything on social media, and they're kind of like undiscovered like studs. They're great
Yeah.
coaches or whoever it is. So one of them was Ira Baldwin. He's that guy that was at Bally Total
Yeah.
Fitness.
Yeah.
Another one was Kevin Kinney, who was my high school strength coach at Parkway North High. Um, and I just had these people who they're too busy, they're of a different generation, or they're busy with other things
Yeah.
that they're never going to go online. And I'm in a position where I constantly talk to athletes or students, and I tell them about this person that I had early in my life, and now I have something. So my decision was I'm going to do some podcast recordings, even if I only do podcasts with like these four guys that I have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I don't have to say I wish you could have spent time around because now when I bring them up, I'm gonna say here is
Watch
a
this.
time capsule watch list. So the goal with the podcast was just to start there. It was just to grab, and out of these four guys that I start out with in mind, I got three out of four, and then the fourth one just declined. Um, but I got those three going, and by the time I did that, I was just like, well, I have this skill set now, and my
Yeah.
kid, and like now, and my skill set needs a lot of improvement. So, but by the time I did that, I thought, well, now I have something that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, my kids have something that they can listen to me,
That's really
and
cool.
I'm not pushing my kids into the field that I'm in. Um, but if they want to be in it, now I have something to leave them behind a little bit.
I
So
love that a
I
lot.
I just started doing that, and then Lindenwood was a really interesting place to be at from 2012 to 2024.
Yeah.
And we had a big department for a school that went from NAIA to D2 and is now D1. We had a pretty big strength conditioning
Yes.
department, and a lot of those coaches have gone off to do amazing things. And so me being it was very convenient for me to stay at Linwood that time all that time because I had so many coaches roll through.
Yeah.
It was the equivalent of me going to different places and getting lucky and meeting different staff members there the whole time.
Yeah.
So if you look at I've done something like 40 episodes. If you look at them, a whole bunch of them are just Lindenwood people. It's just people that I
That's
worked
awesome.
around with, and so it's kind of like a Lindenwood collection there. Not purely, but
Yeah.
so uh, it was just that I was kind of doing doing the opposite of this. Social media is bad for you, and then I kind of
Yeah.
did the
Yeah.
opposite, and then I just thought, well, I know some people I would love to have a conversation. Uh, and then the whole dad thing is like let's leave some stuff behind a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I just learned some, and then I just start learning so much during it. I'm
Yeah.
just like, well, I guess I'll just keep going because I
I
have
love
no,
it.
not that it, and if you talk about the future, I'm not under the impression that this will become a full-time job for me anytime soon.
Yeah.
But along with those, I talked about setting some goals. So in 2024, my goal was 24 podcasts, and I completed that. So,
Nice.
but on the back end half of that year, I got a new job here at Maryville, and my free time disappeared. So now and subsequently I tell myself I'll do at least one per month, and I'll
Yeah.
keep it going. I'll jam in some extras,
Yeah.
but I hold myself accountable to one per month. Allows me to catch up with good people, have good conversations. I learn more. I have more knowledge to share with people. So at some point in the future, somebody's going to have an athlete that's struggling with some of the issues we talked about today, and now I have something to share with them.
I
So
love that. It's really been fun just to see this journey for you, and I'm
yeah,
glad
thank you.
that, you first reached out to me like what, 2 years ago when you
Yeah, it's been.
so I
I
think
think you
it's
had just
nice.
moved up north. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's right, because we were going through the state audit, I think. So I'm just really it's so fun to see kind of where you were when we first met, and then like you as a professional growing, and then now like you as a dad growing, and it's just really fun to kind of see that journey just as an outsider. So I feel really lucky that you asked me to be a part of this, and
no,
that you came back around after I kept saying
yeah,
no, not because I
yeah,
didn't want to, but because life was crazy. So
yeah. I kept you on the list for sure.
yeah, I appreciate it.
I think my last question would be, what's your favorite Motown song from your journey across America?
My Girl, because My Girl is also my favorite movie, even though it's
Okay,
so sad. So, yes,
yeah, I,
absolutely.
I am aware of the ending. I won't spoil it for anybody.
No, no spoils.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, one day we'll cross that bridge and watch it with the kids, but for now,
yeah.
Beta
Um,
Sulfus
Mo
and
Motown Hits is a YouTube search that I do regularly for the weight room. So,
oh, that's
uh,
awesome.
and the kids, nobody, you know what? You bring in all these different people, all walks of life and everything like that. You get Motown hits going. Nobody really complains.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just go
I
with it.
love that. It's
Yeah.
so funny when I did the bike trip, it was again 2001, and I had a CD. Like it was a Walkman, and I had to have one ear in because you can't ride your bike with two headphones in. And it was just too hard because you would have to like put the Walkman in the back of your bike shirt, and so most of the time I just had to be with my thoughts for hours upon
Yeah.
hours because I was like, I brought one CD and I feel like this is kind of dangerous, and I'm a safety officer in my
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
So so it's funny. Like I look back at now, I'm like, I really like Motown, and I guess that's okay. I was alone with my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. Nice. I think I had a Phil Collins CD was the only music I
Nice.
had in my car for like a 7 year stint, just the
Yes.
one CD. Yeah.
Yes, I
Well,
love that.
everybody else had smartphones. I was way late
Yep,
to the smartphone game
same,
and whatever else. So yeah.
same. Yeah, I didn't have a smartphone until I don't even think I had a smartphone until I met my husband. So, yeah, it was way late. I was like doing the flip, and I had that brick phone for a while. I was really good at T9 Word with the texting.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So,
Awesome. Well, gosh, thank you so much for your time.
yeah, thank you.
I
And if you we missed
uh,
anything, let me know, and hopefully you got enough good stuff to.
Is there if listeners want to connect with you, you mentioned having a group, is
Oh
there a
yeah.
good contact source or is there anything?
Yeah, I can send them to you. So Body Positive Fitness Alliance, and then Athlete Insight. So
Great.
I can send you those
Yeah,
links, and you can find the groups there and any of my outpatient services. So yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you. It's great catching up with you. Good to see you. I'm
Same.
glad things are going well up north.
Yeah, thanks. We
Yep.
might be taking a trip out to St. Louis, so I'll definitely reach out.
Yeah, please do.
All right, take
Great.
care. It's so good
All
to
right.
see you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Winning Wellness Podcast. Please keep in mind that all views expressed within the show are not a reflection of any universities or organizations that I may be affiliated with. If you have any questions or suggestions for future shows, please reach out through Instagram, where I can be found with the title name of Mitch Schwartzman.